Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And we are going to have such a fun discussion today because we're going to be talking a bit about disrupting, about not behaving ourselves, about several things like that in order to make sure that you're seen in this very busy, very complicated world. So please join me in welcoming Kate Holgate to our program today. Welcome, Kate. How are you?
Very well. Thank you, Deb. Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, let me tell folks just a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into this. So an award-winning creative director who has been at it long enough to see trends repeating themselves, Kate Holgate has shaped standout brands from a broad range of industries, from education to insurance, healthcare to pet care, transit to, yes, even toilet paper. With infectious enthusiasm and insatiable curiosity, she inspires teams to push boundaries, resulting in bold ideas that defy the expected. Kate enjoys connecting with people, both through campaigns and in real life. She is the executive creative director and partner with Noble West, and she's also the co-founder of the recently launched Secondborn. When she's not pitching ideas or creative problem solving, Kate is an active community leader and educator, serving as an adjunct professor at Boise State University and as an advisory board member for the University of Idaho. She is a volunteer coach for the National Interscholastic Cycling Association and an executive board member of the Children's Home Society of Idaho. She's an avid outdoor woman and the proud mother of two teenagers who help keep her relevant. She embarrasses them as much as possible. Holy schmoly, I got tired just reading your bio. So again, Kate, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Great.
I'll try not to embarrass my teenagers on this podcast.
I know, and I'd love for them to listen. I'm not sure that we have a big teenage audience, but it would be great to have some who would say, "Hey, this is interesting. I love this." But yeah, or to say, not so much, right? But tell us a little bit more about how it is that you got to where you are today.
You bet. Well, I guess growing up, I always loved art, and I went to the University of Idaho and found myself trying to figure out how to make a career out of it. And so I entered a program in graphic and interface design, which is now called user experience, and kind of fell into the advertising world. My first job was at an agency. And I laugh about how I got there. I remember walking into an agency. I looked like I was probably going to, interview at a corporate environment of some sort. I had, my dress on with my scarf around my neck and probably nylons and pumps and a big giant portfolio. And I walk in to this agency and there's like loud music playing and a bunch of middle-aged men playing hacky sack. It's like the music stopped and they all looked at me and they're like, who are you? And I said, oh, well, I'm here to meet with the founder of the agency. We have an interview. And at the time, his name is Ken Stoltz, wonderful mentor to me. But he came out and he's like, who are you? I said, well, we have an interview today.
They're expecting you to say, I'm a salesperson.
Yeah. And so he's like, oh, yeah, come on in. And so I went through my portfolio I look back at my portfolio. It was a lot of projects did in school that have absolutely no real world relevance, like book covers and posters. And then I programmed a website. And back then, I'm going to date myself. It was, the dawn of the interwebs. And so I had programmed a website, designed it, and then had at the time it was a fake website for water skis. It had an animation on it. And it was this water skier moving. And he was like, you did that? I was like, I did. And he goes, hey, Ron, get over here. And so this other guy comes over and they're looking over my shoulder, and I'm kind of like navigating the website. And I always tell people it's because I learned how to use the technology that really got my foot in the door, and then they hired me on the spot, and I started my career in the advertising world. And so, fast forward now 25 years later, I started as a graphic designer and sort of just worked my way up and became I say hack writer along the way. I worked with another wonderful creative director who was another mentor of mine. In fact, I just went fishing with him on Friday all day. We've been friends for over 20 years, and he was the first person to tell me, "Hey, like you don't have to set yourself in a box. Like I know you're an art director, but you're actually a pretty good writer too." And I was like, "Oh, me? I don't know. I haven't been formally trained in writing." And he's like, "No, you can write out an idea." And so he really pushed me to continue learning, and I've always been a curious person. And before you know it, you're almost the oldest in the agency, and giving out all sorts of unsolicited advice and wisdom. And yeah, I've just had an incredible career. So I sort of learned marketing along the way. Um, just have really enjoyed the entire experience of my career. And I tell people it's not for the faint of heart, but if you like to learn, you learn something new every single day. So I have absolutely loved it.
Right. And I got started at a nonprofit, but then I went to an agency. And I love the fact that it changed like every 5 minutes, right?
Yes.
You never knew what was going to happen, especially when you have a variety of clients across multiple industries, right? And so
Absolutely.
I love that. I know there are other people who are like, oh, no, no, no. But, to me, I felt that it was very challenging, but the basics are always still the same. It doesn't matter if it's toilet paper or pet food or whatever, the basics are really still the same. But one of the things that you've really built both of the organizations on is the fact that it is time to be different. It is time to stand out. Especially with Noble West, which is predominantly working in the food industry,
Yeah.
where probably some of the things have not changed in 50 years, if not longer. So tell us a little bit more about Noble West. And first of all, it's not an agency, it's an incubator. And so tell us a little bit more about Noble West.
Well, Nova West, we were founded 19 years ago. Our CEO, Allie Cox, an incredible human, she spent a long time in New York and decided, she's a fifth generation farmer on both sides of her family. And she decided it was time to get back to something that she really cared about. She's an Olympic athlete, had worked at large agencies in New York, worked for Fashion Week and IMG and several others, and then just decided, I want to get back to something that I really care about. So she founded her agency, and then Noble West really does focus on the future of food. She realized that the United States has a long way to go in terms of the food system. As you mentioned, it is the oldest economy, and so yeah, she had a vision and saw a lot of white space and thought, why can't, if you build a brand for a farmer or a food product that's trying to do things the right way, hopefully they can get more for what they're producing. Because usually, agriculture's can oftentimes be a race to the bottom. It's a commoditized industry. And so by building brands and figuring out how to add value, that has really been a part of the vision, and making sure people are getting paid for what they deserve. And so I was recruited about a year and a half ago. We had met, I always say this, you're right, this industry changes all the time. It's always evolving. No day is the same. And also I think it's very relationship driven. And I met Allie at a conference, and we became friends and started talking. And when I was at a crossroads in my career, she called me, and I thought it was I had always thought her agency was really intriguing. I was at the point where I was ready for something that was a little more purpose driven. I thought it was interesting. I come from Idaho, a state that relies heavily on agriculture.
A potato or two.
A potato or two, and believe it or not, we have a lot of other crops, but yes, mostly known for the potatoes. And so I also loved, our other business partner, Sarah Choa. She is our managing director, a strategist, and the smartest woman I've ever met. it was just a really incredible opportunity. So I felt grateful to be brought on as the executive creative director and a partner. And yeah, we've had an incredible year and a half. We grew 45% last year, so
Wow.
have been very busy. And then, as you mentioned, in our non-existent spare time, we launched a creative incubator called Secondborn. And so, again, we just saw an opportunity in the market and wanted to try a different business model. And so, we created what is not really an agency, but it's an incubator where I found right now there's been a lot of restructures. AI has obviously disrupted a lot of different industries. And we worked with a lot of in-house teams where I noted that, there's a need for improving, just like I guess with all the restructures happening, there's a lot of people who there's been a lot of uncertainty, I would say. And I was like, the joy of creativity and creativity in general, is an important part of the future. We have these new tools at our hands. I do believe AI is an incredible tool. Will it replace the critical thinking and humans? No, absolutely not. As I mentioned, it will never replace relationships. And I don't know a single client that has ever said, gosh, I'd rather not be on a production. I don't like to have fun with a team I like collaborating with. I want to do it with a robot. That I still believe that people want to make connections with other human beings, which is actually what marketing is in general. And so, yeah, so we started offering short sprint creative packages and workshops to in-house teams that were in need of a little inspiration and joy. And I thought as an agency, we can also teach brands some of our creative tools that we use to empower them to go and also execute wonderful work. So, yeah, we launched Secondborn on top of it.
I love it. And on Secondborn's website, the headline is Ideas That Refuse to Behave. And I think that's I mentioned it when I was doing the intro. We've done it, this is, especially big companies, but this is the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
And they're very afraid to change that and to do something different. And because, of course, the big thing is, well, this has worked. What if that doesn't? But, part of the problem with it, this is the way we've always done it, is it's in many cases not working. And so people are refusing to innovate, to update, to rebrand, to do all of those various things. And so talk to us a little bit more about that.
You bet. Well, I think we're hit up with marketing every single day. Think about the amount of messages you receive in a single day. There's also a lot of not great marketing out there. And so I truly believe that to stand out, obviously you have to be a little bit different. The more uncomfortable with an idea you are, usually the better it is, because either
Right.
you're charting something that's in a territory that hasn't been explored. Perhaps you're trying to move someone, to make action through an emotion, wherever it might be. I always say, if you don't reward someone for stopping, paying attention, and actually listening to your message, then you're probably not going to make much progress. So, with bold, unique ideas, that is how you reach, you kind of break through that clutter. As cliche as it sounds, it's true. I think creativity is the future of commerce. And in fact, some people have said, well, you can use, AI now for ideas. And I said, I actually use it for an idea eliminator. If you think about it, AI is based on data. And so sometimes I'll do a little search to give me the top 10, activations for a launch of, a rights product. And the 10 that come up are the ones that I immediately eliminate, because it means everyone else has
That
done
means
it.
it found them
So,
multiple times, probably.
yeah. And so I think there's something to be said about, again, AI is an incredible tool. But when you're trying to stand out and be different and be bold, that still takes creativity and also making sure we have some clients that are courageous enough to try new things. And that's oftentimes when you are innovative and successful.
Right. And I use AI a lot. I love it. I am a sole proprietor. it has given, I use ChatGPT predominantly. It's given itself a name. It's a little weird that it refers to itself in the first person. It's like, okay. But, whatever. But, I'm a big Facebook user. I'm that demographic. And I find it interesting now that I can pick out almost immediately an AI generated image. And I'm not opposed to that. I use those. It saves time, all sorts of things. But at the same point, it's like, well, this flyer looks like that flyer that looks like this. And so my brain doesn't even notice that it's for something different. My brain just goes, well, that looks like what I already saw. So then I go on to the next thing. And I think that's where, and now you can tell it, okay. And I've done that. One time I saw something and so I, snagged it, put it into AI, and I said, I want to do something like this, but I don't want it in any way to look like it. And it actually came out with something that was very different. But that took several extra steps. It took longer. And so I think the thing with AI is it's easier and faster, but that doesn't mean that it's better.
Yeah, I think what we use it quite a bit for is obviously for efficiencies. I think I always tell folks that I will never build a timeline by hand ever again. There's certain things that you
Oh,
need
yeah.
admin time, or if I'm putting together a storyboard or a schedule, or I need to shorten a script by 5 seconds, it's a great tool for that to put options out there. And then you still have a human editing. I think it's wonderful for prototyping when you're trying to quickly, see if ideas are working or not. You can use it to prototype. But then there is a fine line where there's still a gray area around artist licenses and I think at the end of the day, it's a real philosophical question. At what point do you use it to supplement creative? What point do you use it to do creative entirely? And at what point do you say, actually, this is probably not ethical. It might be copying, all art is copy, but so we try to use subscription-based services where we know that if it's a photo being generated, and first of all, in food, you actually can't show fake food, but say you want to change out a napkin in the background or remove something. I think it's okay for stuff like that. But there are moments where I want to make sure that we're being fair to licenses, to artistry, to make
Oh,
sure
yeah.
that something's not being ripped off. It's and again, it's great for building, templates, resizing. Again, that stuff that used to take more time, it's now been shortened, so you have more space and time for bigger ideas. So
Right.
I like to think of it as an idea multiplier to, but at the same time, I think there is a balance of how to use it. So you mentioned you've seen images. My thing is when people are pontificating on LinkedIn, I think you can absolutely identify something that's been copy and pasted straight out of ChatGPT. And right now our agency, I call her Chatty. Now we're adopting, we're actually using Claude, which I call her Claudette. So we're using that quite a bit. And again, it's wonderful for if you have done 10, empathy interviews and you want to find the insights from all 10, you can upload the transcript and it scans for patterns. It's again, such a wonderful time saver, but you still need someone at the end of the day to sort through that.
Right. And copyright and trademark are so important. I have been in this world a very long time, and I always want to make sure that I'm not encroaching on any of that. And I've told my clients, if you send me images, that's great, but it has to be image either A, that you purchased and have the rights to, or created yourself. And they've like, well, but I did a right click and I saved it from the internet. No, that is not, saving an image that you found on the internet. That's not ethical. That's not legal. It was funny. I was talking with another one of my guests, and I mentioned the fact that, I was creating a new logo for one of my business entities, and I hired a person to do it. An absolutely delightful young woman who went way above and beyond, right? But I said, could I have gone to, AI and had something created? I said, sure. And it may have actually been somewhat close to what she came up with. But my other guest pointed out, but if it was 100% AI generated, I probably could not trademark it because it may have just copied it from something else. And so for me, it was great. First of all, I, love supporting, this up and coming creative person. But, that is important to do that and to know, okay, this content is not from somebody else. And I mean, there's plagiarism, there are trademark issues, all sorts of things. So it's great. I have it, like you said, I have it generate things. I use it, I do social media posts for many of my clients. And so I will say, okay, here's this, and this, write a post. And of course, it gets very effusive. We are tremendously proud to do, I'm like, okay, and so I go and I take out all those words and all of that. But that is where you can tell when something is AI generated is, it gets very glowing. It's, and of course it tells us we're the most you put something in it, it's like, oh my God, that's the best thing I've ever read. No, and I've been known to tell it, I need you to be critical. And it does. I mean, it knows how to do that. And I've just been astounded at, even in the last year, how much AI has changed. A year ago, if you had it generate an image of a person, it had too many fingers, things like that. And now that's pretty much gone. But it's just a great tool for people to use. It should never replace the actual person doing something.
Yeah, and again, I think there's so many applications for it to optimize, and again, a time saver. But to your point, I still think people enjoy collaborating and having that connection and working
Right.
up together and having the ownership over it. And so, you hiring an up and coming creative to create unique logo, that's probably a wonderful experience for both of you. And so that's the stuff that I think it won't take away. But is it incredibly important to adapt? Absolutely. Absolutely. I tell my college, when I'm teaching as an adjunct professor, there's these students coming out of school and they're like, how are we going to find entry-level jobs? And
Right.
truly,
Those are getting fewer and farther between.
yeah, I mean, some of the jobs that helped you learn, such as being a production artist, being the person to resize 150 ads, that's not around anymore because we do have tools to do that for us. However, I'm starting to think that the creative generalist, it used to be that you got really good at a single craft. And this is a big debate. Some people would not agree that you need to have your craft. Maybe it's art direction and you really hone in on that craft. Maybe it's writing, you become a writer. Maybe it's, editing video, whatever your craft is. But I think the tools are allowing really creative people to, again, prototype ideas. A writer can now generate a storyboard of a script that they used to have to hire an artist just to get an idea across. An art director can now come up with headlines using a tool. A person who might not have been able to edit video before, but it's a really good storyteller, can figure out how to create a story arc using tools. So I believe that moving forward, there's a few qualities that make incredible creatives for the future. Curiosity, absolutely. As you mentioned, this industry evolves at the speed of light. You have to be kind of a lifelong learner to survive. And so I look for curiosity. I look for resilience. I think that this next generation of creatives, if, bold ideas, you're going to get told no a lot.
Right. Because it comes back to but we've never done that.
Yeah, it makes people very uncomfortable. And so you have to really have a resilience. And I always tell our creative team, I'm like, there's always more ideas. There's always more ideas. And so a resilience of working hard, like really seeing it all the way through, taking feedback, that's really important. I think soft skills are incredibly important. I tell my students now, I'm like, go out and network. You will only be as powerful as your network, especially as we have tools now scanning your resume to see if it's the proper, the proper words are in there. I would, to this day and age, I still believe most jobs are made by having a connection behind the curtain at the front door, just to get through And so I think having the ability, when we were chatting before the program started, you're talking about a 13-year-old being able to have a conversation with an adult. Um, just really making sure you have empathy and you understand how to communicate, and you follow up and really get to know people. I mean, this is a business where we're trying to communicate with humans at the end of the day. And so I think that's really important. And then I think just really having critical thinking skills, having a nose for strategy, understanding that sure, anyone can put something pretty out in the world, but what's the return on investment? How is it solving a business problem? Can you articulate the goals, the business goals that you're achieving with this piece of communication? So that sort of a thing. And so those are qualities now that I look for in up and coming creatives, as well as just really people being good humans too,
Right.
So.
Right. And it's interesting. One of the things, of course, in this world that it tends to be a big thing is to look at the Super Bowl commercials, right?
Oh yeah.
Because they're very creative, they're very whatever, but you watch them all, and how many times have we watched them and gone, that was really cool, but what was it for?
Yeah.
My favorite is, and this one's, oh gosh, probably 20 years old, the herding cats one.
Oh, yep.
Right. And I use that analogy, when we're trying to figure stuff out, and, all these, it's like herding cats. And now I have gone back and looked, and I know it's for EDS, which is a computer company, but there was nothing in that ad that pertained to EDS. It got a lot of attention. I think it got a lot of awards. I mean, all sorts of things. But it still comes back to, if people don't know what you're selling, it doesn't matter how creative you are. And the one, and I would say kind of the one anomaly in that is Budweiser, right? Clydesdales, dogs, eagles, all of that, they don't really sell beer. But we love the commercials, and we remember when we see them, that's a Budweiser commercial.
Well, I would say the fact that you remember in general a commercial means that had some sort of relevance at the time. I always say we're in our culture. We do not have Super Bowl budgets when we're putting together.
Right. And why should you? That's no.
Well, I always say a beautiful production can make a mediocre idea work. A really good idea does not need a $2 million production budget. Sometimes it might, but I would say we don't have that luxury. And so when we're working with our clients and we're putting together production, maybe it's a video for a streaming service, whatever it might be, we oftentimes don't have those budgets. So you have to really make sure that the creative has legs, it works, it's written in a way that is very producible, and it's still super interesting. I also think it's more sustainable to have small footprints when you're doing productions. And so there's a lot of great creative out there that has been done on shoestring budgets. Although there are a few Super Bowl commercials in the past, like ones that stand out to me are this is a Tide commercial, the one that came out probably like 4 or 5 years ago, where it looked like a car commercial, but it was really a Tide commercial. Each one was connected. I don't know if you remember that. That one I thought that was so smart, so entertaining. Trying to think of others. They weren't necessarily Super Bowl, but I loved the progressive Dr. Rick, where you don't turn out like your parents. That one, I feel like
I love those. And of course, the bad part is I look at it and go, "Oh God, I do that."
I think it makes kids laugh and makes grandparents laugh. It spans all the ages, and they based it off of an insight. And again, like an insight to me is what should inspire all creative. What's that human truth that we're trying to get at? And I thought that was really well done. And so well done that it has lived on again for years. So you think about what makes a really great creative platform. It's one that can be story after story can be told. And it can last for years. Another one I would say that's a standout to me is Dove Real Beauty. Again, they came up with a platform that has lived on for well over a decade. I feel like it's almost 2 decades now. And it keeps evolving as, the world evolves and how they're telling that story of authenticity and real beauty. And that is another excellent example of a great creative platform that has lived on.
Right.
Yeah, the Super Bowl is always funny. There's a lot of debate over what makes a good spot versus
Mhm.
not. And
Right.
sure, I mean, who wouldn't want to work on a Super Bowl spot? I
I
have
know.
aspirations that one of our clients
Mhm.
will someday be there, but
Mhm.
I do believe that there's some really
Mhm.
wonderful pieces out there that do
Mhm.
not that
Mhm.
maybe weren't at
Right.
the Super Bowl.
Right.
So
Yeah. I mean, the Dove example is a fabulous example of somebody who went, you know what? The models in our ads do not look like the people who buy our product.
yeah, yeah,
And yes, there are people out there who are gorgeous in size 0, but most are not. you know,
myself
and
included.
but it was a little jarring, right? When it
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, she's a little overweight. Oh, she's a different color. She's older." All of these things, but then you realize that's my neighbor. That's me. And so it really was something, and you're right. I love those because they realized, we need to talk to who buys the product.
Yeah.
And I'm always amused when I see an ad and I think, and whether it's print, whether it's, on Facebook, wherever, and I think, who is their audience? Who is their target market? What's their demographic? Because it is still a lot of the really skinny, people. There's an ad series for men's cologne, and Johnny Depp was part of it, and now there's a new actor who's part of it, and they're out there and they're rough and they're tumble and they're cowboys, and they're advertising this probably very expensive men's cologne, right? But I looked at my husband and I said, would that ad, now he doesn't wear cologne, but I said, would that ad ever make you interested in buying cologne? And he said, no. And part of it was you get to the very end and there's the bottle, right? And you're like, that's what this was for? And again, if you're not reaching the people who are going to potentially buy your product, it can be fun, it can be innovative, all of those things, but did it really do anything?
Yeah, I'm laughing because I'm trying to think of any man that actually goes out and buys cologne. I feel like they
I
go for
know,
their
it's a
face
Father's
when
Day
they're
gift, right?
yeah, I feel like maybe they are reaching women in that.
Mhm,
They're
mhm,
probably the ones who are
mhm.
like, I would love my husband to look like Jacob
Yes.
Boone.
Ooh, I
Like,
like
I'm gonna
Johnny
buy
Depp,
that.
therefore.
Yeah, but or I
Mhm,
think about my son went
mhm,
through his phase when he
mhm.
was 14
Oh,
of
yeah. Mhm,
he's now 17 and a
mhm,
half, and I think about when he like became interested in cologne. And so I was like, I think there's maybe I don't know very many men going out and shopping for new cologne that they could get when they were probably
mhm,
14 or 15 and
mhm,
stuck with them. But yeah, it's just, there's so many different, that's why I love this industry. There's so many different products out there and so many different ways to communicate with people, and like just really understanding your audience
mhm,
at the end of the day is the key,
mhm,
and knowing what motivates them. And so a lot at Noble West and Secondborn, we do quite a bit of discovery and research before we write the brief, because we need to uncover like what is that human truth we're trying to get at, that we're
mhm,
trying to inspire someone, that hopefully, and again, being in a purpose driven industry where we're working with
mhm,
food
mhm,
and more sustainable brands, I feel like it feels good that I always say the more we grow our business, the more impact on the world we're
mhm,
having.
mhm.
Like
Right.
that is truly, if you're a mission-based business,
Mhm,
the better you do, the more impact you're having in a positive way. And so, yeah, it's really important that what we're putting out there works, and it continues to educate consumers. And I mean, people need to know where their food comes from. People are becoming more interested in where their food comes from.
mhm,
And so, yeah, we do a lot of research around who we're trying to reach, and
mhm,
how can we best educate them.
mhm. Right. Now, I will admit, one of my favorite commercials right now is a potato commercial.
Oh, which
Um,
one?
and so it's the potato farm. I was going to say
Oh yeah,
ranch, and I know that's not right. Right, and it's the
yeah,
little girl, right?
the
And
little
she
girl. Yep,
notices the little plant coming up in the driveway,
yep, that was a
and
Super Bowl
and
spot.
and she she nurtures that, and I just think it's very cute because she's out there with an umbrella, she hand waters all of these things, and of course it grows and does what potatoes are supposed to do, and then she takes that potato that she grew and she puts it in with all of the other potatoes, and she's just so proud of herself. And and to me, I like I said, I love that, because to me it's showing that it's kind of a family oriented type of thing, right? And it just it shows the care that, now granted, I mean, the big fields, all of those things, they're not out there with umbrellas, and we know that. But I think it does show that, we know family is important to that business.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of farms are multi-generational.
Right, right.
We work a lot with our clients who are, again, fourth, fifth generation. And one of our biggest clients is the largest French fry supplier in the United States. And when you're out, touring these farms, a lot of them are multi-generational. And it's funny, that is another commercial that a lot of people gravitated towards. And maybe it's because it made you stop and think for a second, like, where does the potato that goes in my potato chip come from? I'd argue on the other side, there's a lot of farmers out there who are like, that is not that is not.
Yeah, they're not out there with the umbrellas.
Yeah, they're like, you know what? Hard work. We're up at 5 o'clock in the morning. It is not glamorous. It is really, I mean, having spent now a lot more time with farmers in their fields, it's, again, another industry. It's not for the faint of heart, and they work so hard.
Right.
But it's nice to see that, a brand going for trying to tell people about the origin story of where their food comes from, which is what Noble West does every day.
Right. And we care about that. I had a guest on several weeks ago who is fifth generation seafood provider. She is fifth food generation, which, that is very unique. And she lives in Alaska, and Washington, depending on, the season. Right. And so on the website, and it's, the company is called Sina C, and her name is Sina. And I mean, they very much play up the fact that she is fifth generation. And she said, of course, and this is the same, whether you're, when you're providing a food, like something like this, the weather is going to be, and so she said, there are times where, it doesn't thaw at the right time, or where they don't have enough water, or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, it was her great grandfather in Norway who started the business, and I grew up in the mountains of Colorado, where, they're on the fifth and sixth generation of ranching. And it's just, the first thing is, it's a really hard life. And so the fact that they have such a passion to continue it when they could easily go off and do something else, to me, that's always a big part of that story. And it's great.
Well, and you mentioned, it's getting harder and harder to produce food. I mean, I hate to say, but climate change isn't going away. There's certain, I mean, to your point, you can't predict the weather. There can be good seasons, there can be bad seasons, but there's a lot of people out there trying to do the right thing, whether that they're trying to grow, conserving water, they're trying to do different energy sources. They are using ag technology to figure out how to get the best yield for their products so that they can keep prices low, whatever that might be. Another area that we service besides food is a little adjacent, but we also help healthcare systems that are providing healthcare to rural areas, because oftentimes the people working on those farms are in rural places. And so we have a couple of, a little bit adjacent, but we have a couple of health systems. And again, it feels pretty good at the end of the day when you can be helping sell a product that's improving someone's life. Kind of that feels pretty good.
Right. And as you said, we're more and more interested in this, what chemicals are being put on things. And I get that, you have to do some things, but, I think probably one of the biggest things that people are finally starting to pay attention to, and it is on your website, are those little things called bees. If we lose the bees, we're in big trouble, and that's my soapbox for the day. But,
You're correct.
Yeah, it is something where we do care. And I think we always have. But, when I was little, it really got into, what chemicals and processes can we use to really make things better? Bigger, stronger, faster, whether it was, bigger cows, bigger produce. And then we finally realized maybe bigger was not better. And especially when you're adding a bunch of chemicals and things like that.
Well, I love that you bring up bees. I think it's fascinating because I think people are becoming more aware that bees provide both a service and a product. And if you think about it, that is truly, I mean, farmers use bees to predict certain
Right.
crop outcomes. They're incredibly important for pollination, and then also they provide a product. And so we actually just had a conversation with a potential client that is a large national honey association, and they were saying like a lot of people don't realize how important bees are to the global food economy. And so there is a lot. I mean, I am no expert. Again, I've only been in this niche environment for about 18 months. I'm learning a lot, and and now myself as a consumer much more aware of
Right.
where my products are coming from.
Right. And we've seen it start carrying over, right? The Amazon ads where you can click and find out, was your product sustainably created? I don't know if I really believe some of that, right?
Yeah.
But I do know that, say, a company like Amazon, we don't have so many boxes. It's recyclable materials, which has got to be harder to stack and all sorts of things. But they're really thinking about it, and unfortunately, a lot of companies recently have really had to think about gas, the price of gas, and so what can we do to potentially reduce that? When I order from Amazon, I'm real big on trying to figure out, I don't need a delivery now, and a delivery tomorrow, and a delivery on Thursday. I can wait and get everything on Friday.
Yeah.
And we are finally starting to pay attention to that. And and so then the marketing has to also talk about that. Because like you said, we care about sustainable. Are we really screwing up? It's kind of like, well, I don't, it's so many times I've heard people say, well, in 150 years, we'll have ruined the land. Well, your descendants will probably still be here then. But we're doing things like that are going to make big changes. And it's a challenge. I mean, I live here in Georgia, right? Big peach, big pecan, and a little thing like one bad weather day can wipe out everything. And obviously we need bees because bees are going to pollinate, and then you get you get peaches. And I think we have stopped just going to the grocery store and buying. We might actually think about, wonder where this came from and how was it produced.
Or if you think about, I love that we're touching on this. We actually have a very specific service offering called Halo that is specific to ESG. A lot of companies have put out sustainability goals by 2030, 2050. And so rather than just putting out in a simple, in a report, which actually is very simple, it's complicated data, but we actually have a service we offer where we help tell those stories in a little bit more engaging manner. Really look to make sure there's a lot of, greenhushing, greenwashing. Like you have to be very careful with what you say now. But also it takes, again, it takes really good storytelling to get those messages across, even if it is for ESG goals. But going back to just how important just understanding where our food comes from, I think there's a lot of food waste in the United States. If you go, my brother lives in Amsterdam. We spent a few weeks with him last year, living in Amsterdam with he and his family. And, in the United States, you go to a grocery store and rather than if there's a bruised piece of fruit, it won't be purchased.
Right.
Cucumbers
we look at it, we put it back.
Yeah, cucumbers are the exact same size, shrink wrapped in plastic, things are processed
Right.
less.
You can't tell me that was naturally produced.
Well, and so if you look, there are places where, like the Netherlands, which is the size of Maryland, is one of the largest exporters of food. And it's all like they've figured out some sustainable growing practices and how do you get people fresh food every, day. You go down to the market. You do not do your once every week grocery shop. You go to the market every single day and get fresh. And it might be that you get a container that has some bruised fruit in it or whatever, and that's okay. But beyond that, I just think making sure that we can reward farmers for the hard work they're doing to make good products is important.
Mhm.
And again, our CEO, who lives in the Central Valley of California, which is the largest food production area of the entire, United States, you see it. You just see people working really hard to put food on the table, and so again, it's just it feels good to work for a business that is trying to help people,
Mhm.
and it's not going away.
Mhm.
Everyone has to eat, so
Right, right. Yeah, and it's funny because we've seen things that say, well, millennials care about who they work for and what they're buying. Well, they care about that because we raised them to think that, right? And part of it, I think, is because we didn't. And so it's like, okay, now you need to be thinking about stuff like this. And and I think really, that is something that is carrying forward. People care about, if they're working for an organization, are they environmentally friendly? And I worked for big companies that were very proud of the fact that they had a recycling container.
yeah.
And I mean, at least they cared, right, to do that. But then the really annoying thing was if you watched, it got dumped in with everything else, right? We noticed that the other day. We have two trash containers here in our house. One is regular stuff, and then the other is recycling. And you put them both out, and my husband watched the one truck pick up both and dump the, and it's very clearly, I mean, it's green. It's you can tell it's the recycling one. And he called him and he said, I'm confused. Why are we bothering to recycle if you put it in with everything else?
Yeah.
And their comment was, "Oh, we clearly need to have a conversation with our drivers."
Oh.
Now, maybe it's make sure there's nobody watching. But yeah, we took the time to sort and to clean and to tear the labels off of things and all of that. Now you might still go into the same place at the landfill, but at least I want it to leave my neighborhood in the separate thing.
Yeah. Well, you actually touched on something. You said it when we're teaching millennials. I actually have found, again, just from a recruitment standpoint, that, Noble West and Secondborn, who are both mission driven,
Mhm.
have recruited some really incredible talent because we are mission driven. And
Right.
I think, again, this new, the next generation of creative, it's not all about the money's important because we all want, we live in a capitalistic society. We all want to do well,
We
but
have bills we have to pay.
sure. But there is interesting to see this next generation that care more about the purpose, how they're I think about retention. It's no longer sink or swim. Like when we started our careers, then again I showed up and didn't even know I was gonna have an interview and I didn't have a computer for 2 weeks. They're like, welcome. No training. You are just gonna survive if you can survive. And now there's just so much more studies show that if you do really intentional onboarding, if you're continuing to provide educational opportunities, if you're purpose driven, that stuff matters a lot.
Right.
And I think creating an environment where whether it's a corporation not even related to the marketing industry, making sure that people have a place to fail forward. I think that when it is a fear-driven environment, innovation never happens. You have to be okay with it not working.
Right.
Going back to like bolder ideas. And so I think it's really important to create environments for the next generation of creative talent to be able to thrive. And it needs to be a place where it's okay to experiment, to try, to fail, to really think big. And yeah, it's been interesting to see the combination of what is attractive to the talent force.
Right. Because you mentioned a big word, retention. If you're repeatedly having to start over with a new employee, it's you're behind that hamster wheel and that's all you're doing.
It's
Now,
very expensive too.
yeah, and now are they staying places forever? Probably not. I mean, my husband retired a couple years ago. He had been with, now it had several iterations, but he'd been there since he got out of college. And so he'd been there 37 and a half years.
Wow.
And that's, you don't have that now, right? It used to be that, especially, the people of my parents' generation, they got the gold watches, all of those various things.
Pension.
But yeah, oh yeah, that's nice. My husband did get a pension. But it is something where when you've built a company, you might only have somebody for 3 or 4 years. I mean, you're probably doing
Well,
good if you've got them for 3 or 4.
I just read a statistic that said the average length of time that a Gen Z individual stays in either a tech or creative job is 1.8 years,
Wow. Wow.
which is crazy to me.
Right.
And yeah, and so
And
retention,
if we had
especially when
looked
it
at
comes to
somebody's resume where they were changing like that, we're like, what's wrong with them? But there's nothing wrong with them. Part of it, though, is they want those other experiences. So if you provide them, then they're not going to go elsewhere. It's, one of the, I remember, back when I worked in corporate America, there were education benefits, right? But it had to be related to your job. And now companies aren't doing that. They're like, hey, you know what? We're just, because increasing your mind and all of those things is going to make you a better employee. Learning how to do underwater basket weaving might not do that, but
well, sorry to interrupt, but I'm really passionate about this. I think that as a creative myself, how are we supposed to, unless we're out there experiencing the world, you never come up with your best ideas by sitting inside of 4 walls for 50 hours a week. So I personally encourage our team to get out. Like, you should be experiencing life. How will you develop empathy for other human beings that you're trying to communicate with without experiencing that? So you need to experience pain and love and other cultures, and that is so important. And I do think that those life experiences make people stronger creatives.
Right. Right. And the company can encourage people to volunteer. Maybe they give them 1 day a month where they get to go and do whatever they want. Doesn't have to pertain to the company. Now, maybe you use it as a team building, but yeah, going out and say, working in a soup kitchen, you're going to learn things there that will come back to whatever your job is. But there are so many people, back to the, but this is the way we've always done it conversation. They're afraid that, if we, allow that to happen, well, they're going to go elsewhere. They're probably going to go elsewhere anyway.
Yeah,
But if you kept them for an extra year, then, that's great. And you might keep people for a long time, depending on your culture. But that all comes back to something, because you talk about mission driven, we talk about culture. It has to be something that is real and not just something that's up on the wall.
Yeah, I believe it has to be supported from the top down. I tell our team all the time, I don't expect you to retire with Noble West. That's probably not the reality.
Right.
But if we can give you the best portfolio, the best skills to go on to your next big thing, that is truly what we want to happen.
Right.
So we will do everything we can to help you reach your goals in life.
Right.
And I really mean that. And I have 2 other business partners that one of our values is people first. And you have to support it from the top down. Otherwise, it's just lip service, or another check the box for, whatever cultural award you're trying to get. I mean, and we do try, and I'm going to tell you, do we have work-life balance all the time? No.
And there is
we're in
no
a
such
deadline.
thing.
Yeah, we're in a deadline-driven business. There are weeks where our team is working really hard and probably 20 hours. And I want to be real about it. We try hard not to have that happen, but it does happen sometimes. But I am hopeful that, you're surrounded by a team that's not going to leave you by yourself. If someone's working late, I'm going to be up working late with them. And that's the kind of talent that we're recruiting, people that truly care about each other beyond just, and they want to make really good work. They really want to make good work. And so I think, to your point, the culture is a really key part. I also touched on this in past conversations, but creativity, I think there's a lot of neurodivergent people within creativity, and I believe it's a superpower, but you can't manage it the same way that you would someone who maybe is not. That means they might perform very well under pressure. That means maybe shorter sprints or more frequent check-ins rather than long deadlines. There's all sorts of ways you can manage that and really harness that as superpower. I truly believe in the potential of a lot of individuals who maybe in other environments wouldn't thrive. But I think in creativity you can.
Right. And the big thing, and of course this is, a challenge, is you have to manage each person individually. Even if it's just as simple as this person does better if I text them. This person needs me to stand over their shoulder and talk to them. Whatever it is, figure out how you're going to get the best out of that person. Because we're not going to make that square peg fit into that round hole. We can pound on it to our heart's content, but it's not going to happen. And so why not give people the culture to really thrive in the best way possible for them? Now, I mean, that doesn't work for every business. It can't, right? But yeah, how can you do something with your employees? And I'm saying with, you know, on purpose that is going to help them to thrive. Because even if they go elsewhere, you still want them to think lovingly of you. And more importantly, when they have something, they might, oh, hey, I know of a place that you need to check out to go work. Or, hey, you'd be a great client for these folks. You've got teenagers that you're getting ready to send off into the world. It's the same thing with employees, right? You raise them, you train them, and then you send them on the way. And sometimes they come back. Sometimes there are, all sorts of benefits. But
Oh,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I tell my creative directors, I said, you've done a good job when someone wants to come work for you again someday. They might go off,
Yes.
and if they come back, if they would follow you somewhere, you've done your job. And I also believe that a team, I think diversity and a team makeup makes a better team. Um, I don't know. There's a lot. We're lucky in that we're a small agency of smallish of about to be 23 people. And I feel like there are some benefits to building a career at a smaller shop. If you want to be brand sexy, work for the Adidas and the Toyotas of the world, Noble West probably isn't a hike for you. However, if you're looking to build a book, have more flexibility in building a career faster, and then I say we're small enough if you want to craft a role that's really fit for you, the individual. We have one of my creative directors is an incredible writer. We are right now evolving her role into being a creative director over content because she has a real knack for understanding. Not only she's an incredible writer, like incredible, but she was ready to learn something new, and so she is going to be overseeing all content production. And it's a great, I was like, why not? We have a luxury where people don't have to stay in their tiny little lane, where if you want to learn something, you can. And I truly believe, like, if you can, people will not forget you if you help them get to the next level for them to thrive as an individual and in their careers. So.
Right. I love it. Well, oh my gosh, we have been having such a great discussion, but we're almost at the top of the hour. So, we will have links to both Secondborn and to Noble West in the show notes. We'll also link to your LinkedIn profile. But if somebody says, I need to talk to you, how do they find you?
Well, of course, you can always message me on LinkedIn. Also, I'm totally available to always set up a Zoom call. I believe that someone gave me 20 minutes of their time years and years ago, which is will always be grateful for. And so, yeah, you can message me in LinkedIn, find me on our website, and reach out. I'm happy to talk to anyone.
Right. I had one of those informational interviews 30 years ago. And it was one of those where, yeah, it was 15, 20 minutes, but it convinced me that I was doing what I needed to be doing. And so I absolutely love that. But yeah, I mean, you've got so much great information. Like I said, we'll have links to both websites in the show notes. But this has been great. I mean, wow, we like lots of squirrels. We went all sorts of different directions, right?
Squirrels.
I tell people you never know what you're going to get with me.
I call it opening a new tab. My tabs are all open. I'm always opening a new tab.
And somewhere there's one that's singing, and you're like, I don't know why something's playing music, right? Yep, you never know. I think we definitely should have you on again. But until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Oh gosh, I think the world's not easy right now, and I think just realizing that the potential of human beings to connect with each other, to come together, to help each other is important. And I think, as I mentioned, creativity is a very important part of the future of the world. And so, yeah, for all the creatives out there, keep working hard, keep learning how to adapt and use the tools, and just know like how valuable you are, because innovation can't happen without creativity. So thank you for the good work being done.
Oh my gosh. I love it. I love it. Well, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having so much fun getting to know Kate Holgate of Noble West and Secondborn. And I know why, but we didn't even talk about why Secondborn has its name.
Oh gosh. Well,
Yep.
if it's not hard to tell, I am definitely a second born that tends to march to the beat of my own drum, but there's a lot of fun qualities. Just look it up.
I love it. I see, and I'm an only, so yeah. But yeah, we've been having so much fun having this discussion. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Yep. Have a great day. Thank you so much, Deb.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.